Chapter 2. Always, Scylla's father had said they should be grateful. She remembered her mother saying that too, or she thought she did. Criana Horus had disappeared so early that Scylla sometimes could not tell which of her memories were real and which ones she'd made up in hindsight. But she didn't mind that. An imaginary mother was better than no mother at all. But it was very hard to be grateful, sitting at a too small table, eating a too small meal of donated food. 2 weeks ago, her father had done his best to make her 16th birthday feel as special as possible. He had eased off his alcohol in the time leading up to it, and been stone-cold sober when the day came, which was what she had wanted the most. But still, it humiliated her to spend her birthday unemployed, poor, and going downhill. "So," said her father, "now that you've finished school, are you going to be working full-time? You told me you planned to do that, right?" He had stopped ignoring the fact that she'd lost her job at the grocer's, and he was too generous to believe that she would do anything but honest work now that she was free. The truth was, Scylla had never given any thought to what she would do next. When she had told him that she planned to work, she had only said it to make him happy, because he was the one person in the galaxy who ever seemed to be happy with her, and she didn't want to lose him too. But now it was time to decide, and it seemed there was nothing to do except cast around for another job. So after lunch that day, she put on one of her 2 nice outfits and took a walk around town, looking for signs that said "Help Wanted." The first one she found was in a blaster store, and Scylla was rare for a Yostinite in that she had never fired one before. She decided not to let that stop her. When the owner sat her down for an interview, she asked her for a reference to her character. The word confused her. "My character?" "That's right," said the owner. "I need someone who can vouch for you, honey. I don't want to take in some stranger. Honesty, you know, is very important in this place." Blast, she thought. Honesty was not one of her strengths, and she knew it. She left the store unemployed. At a tax store, she seemed to be doing better, but when the woman who might hire her asked her if she ever worked with animals, Scylla chose to tell the truth and say that she never had. She failed the interview. These shops, and the little industrial parks between them, were home to a rotating cast of shifty, shady young characters who never seemed to do anything except lean on the Duracrete walls and look suspicious. Scylla was warned to stay away and never speak to them, so of course she approached one and spoke to him. They were a lot like her, she found. Rejects and ruffians whose only real skills were in breaking the unfair rules set by others. The males were happy to see her and eagerly invited her into the circle, and there she found she could talk freely. "It's just my luck," she said, when they inevitably asked her for her life story. "So I did something stupid, big deal, and then suddenly I can't get a job anywhere. It's like they want me to be like this." "You get it, girl," said one of the boys, a tall, slim one who wasn't the leader, but whom all the others listened to. "We never stood a chance. The only difference between us," he stabbed a finger to his chest, then aimed it off into the distance, "and them is that they had a chance. We don't have a chance, and we know it, so we just live with it." "You've got to live for the now," said a spaced-out girl who always sat on the sidelines, beautiful but inexplicably unpopular with the boys. "Don't let your abusive dad hold you back." At that, Scylla felt a twinge of remorse. She had told them things about her father that, in hindsight, were not strictly true. Despite what she might have told them, her father had never beaten her, or stolen her money for booze. But so few people felt any sympathy for her that, surely, she decided, she was entitled to a little exaggeration. Anything to get someone to feel sorry for her. Life owed her that much. Her visits to the street corner became routine, and soon she learned some names, and they learned her name in turn. The tall, slim boy was named Lowdown, and his life was just like hers. There were 2 Nikto boys in the group, so similar looking that she thought they must be twins, but they insisted that they were only brothers, the Dorska brothers. The leader of the gang, called Hanost, didn't talk much. With his broad shoulders and deep voice, he had everyone's respect, even though it was weird that he stayed pale no matter how much time he spent outdoors. Their respect for him grew when he appeared one day, prominently wearing a brand new jacket, boasting that he'd stolen it. Scylla felt the urge to protest that stealing was a fool's errand, and that she had learned as much the hard way. But his theft was such an event, such a triumph in the eyes of the others, that she decided not to ruin it for them. Next time, Lowdown came with a jacket of his own, with his own story of daring deeds to match. This time, his pride and energy infected Scylla, and before she knew it, she was celebrating with him. Lowdown took off the jacket and passed it to one of the Dorska brothers, who obligingly donned it and struck a fashionable pose, and then the spaced-out girl took it from him. It went around the circle, with each member displaying Lowdown's trophy of success. When it was Scylla's turn, Lowdown took the jacket from the last wearer and personally settled it on her shoulders and helped her arms through the sleeves. The implications of this were not lost on Scylla. All that was to the good, but it didn't put food on the table, so she kept trying to find jobs. Constantly, Hanost and his gang insisted that there was no use in trying, and that Scylla was marked for life, but Scylla persisted. "I need to eat," she would say, whenever they got too testy about it. The weather kept it fresh in her mind. Summer had faded away. Autumn wore on, and the cold and dark closed their jaws around Yostin. The unpleasant weather drove the gang off the streets, but did nothing to drive away Scylla's need for income. Relying on her father was a tenuous thread to hang by. But that did not make the process easy. Her worst memory was of a boot repair shop, where she didn't even get as far as being asked for a reference. The owner seems to have heard of her, and the whole interview had the feeling of a cold, insincere ritual before she was unceremoniously shown the door. Once on the street, she wanted to visit Lowdown and her other friends, but she could not stomach the prospect of telling them that maybe they were right. That was when opportunity found her. "Hey," said a voice as she walked by, "you ever worry about the future?" That was an unusual thing to say. She turned to see a weaselly little Nikto boy with an oversized vest draped over his shoulders. "Worry," she replied coolly. "Not me. I just live for today." "Well, hey, stuff's dangerous. You never know what's gonna happen. Why not hear out little old me for a second?" She folded her arms. "What?" "You know, we can set things aside. Make it a little easier to ride out the storm when it gets here." "What are you trying to sell me?" "What if you got injured? Huh? Then you'd have to go to the hospital, right?" He leaned in conspiratorially. "Well, if you got hit, the hospital in this town won't work on you. They'll let you die because that's what they're supposed to do. They're trying to get rid of street trash like us." He held up a beaten-up tablet computer with a list of names on it. "But hey, sign here and you won't have to worry about it. I know a guy who can fix you anytime, anywhere. It's just 10 credits a month and then no questions asked. Come on." She narrowed her eyes. "You think I'm stupid? There's no hospitals in this town. We use the county hospital in Zexu Point, and even if I did believe that garbage about them letting me die, I'd rather take my chances, thanks." "Whoa there, hey!" He put up his hands and looked stymied. His eyes darted around as if he was on a stage, looking for a cue card telling him what lie to use next. Scylla thought back. Is this what I looked like when Rennie was yelling at me? It looked pathetic, like a worm caught out on a stepping stone. She shook her head. When he launched into another sales pitch, she cut him off by bringing out a fistful of credits. "Hook me up with a job, and there's a finder's fee for you." "Well, hell, now you're talking," he sang. "How much do I get in advance?" "Don't push your luck, skinny boy." "Oh, well, more fidgeting and shifting of his big vest, and he started to scamper away. "Hey girl, I won't disappoint you. No siree." The next time she saw Lowdown and the gang, they sheltered from the cold in an abandoned little house that nobody seemed to own, and when she pulled open the door to join them, they all peered at her with questions in their eyes. She did not feel the need to mention that she'd tried and failed to find a job. She had someone on it, and that bought her peace of mind. There was, of course, the problem of her father. He did not say anything directly, but started throwing out oblique comments about what a good thing it was that she was working, and how she was already on the path to success. It rankled her. What right did he have to criticize her? And she didn't want to hear more of it. So she kept trying. A few minutes into an interview with an animal doctor who needed an assistant, the veterinarian perked with interest and said, "Oh, you're that girl who wanted to work for Novak." "Who?" said Scylla. "She runs the tack store and we go way back. She told me about you a few weeks ago." "Oh, I see." It would be another failure. Sour thoughts filled her mind. "What I heard from her is that you didn't waste her time and you were honest. That's important, and I want you to know I really admire that." Thanks. "So, when can you start?" It took a moment for Scylla to realize her fortunes had turned. To go back to work was a mixed blessing. It meant money, but it also meant hard work, and she could no longer spend days on end lounging around in the streets. The streets, she realized, had become comfortable. There, no one wanted her to be ashamed of anything. But even that changed. The worst part of being employed was that now her friends drew away from her. When she approached them in the stuffy, tomb-like abandoned house that was now their base, they fell silent and looked sideways at her. Lowdown no longer gazed at her the way he had. None of them said anything about it, but they did not have to. As far as the gang was concerned, commiserating with them was her job, and she had given it up. But on a frosty, bitter midwinter day, opportunity knocked again. "Hey there, miss." Scylla turned around to see that same little Nikto she'd met a few weeks ago, still wearing that same ridiculous vest. "Said you were looking for a job?" he asked her. "Well, I've got some good news for you. I've got a plan. Where's the rest of your crew?" She folded her arms. "Who wants to know?" "Well, whoever's doing the job, so I'd say it's you. It's not a one-woman kind of a job. Trust me, believe me, you're going to want help." Scylla was not in a good mood. Work that day had been slow, dull, and confusing, and her friends were treating her more like a stranger than ever. And here came this mincing little nothing to lay something else on top of her, something that smelled strongly of crime and the loss of another job. On the other hand, if it was outside the lines, then Lowdown and the others would respect it, and they'd respect her for bringing it to them, and it would break the monotony. It would be something she did because she wanted to, not because she had to. She smiled. "Come with me," she said. She and the shifty boy talked it over as they walked, and when they entered the house and found the gang, she had a full-grown plan to tell them. "Oh," said Hanost, "you have a plan? You're not the planner here." "I am now," she said. She stood on a broken chair, one of the few pieces of furniture left in the ruined house, and she pulled out her holoprojector and summoned up the image of a forked stem. "This is luvine, and some of the farmers grow it around here because they sell it to the pharmacies so they can make painkiller. That's the idea, anyway." One of the Dorska brothers gave a knowing smile. Lowdown, too, seemed to have a dim sense of where this was going. Everyone else waited in silence. Scylla could hear the winter wind rattling the ill-fitting front door. "If you refine this stuff," she went on, "you can make luvine dust. I'm not talking about medical stuff." She rubbed her fingertips together. "You can make hard product that you can sell on your own for a street price. And yes, it is very addictive." She worked up to it slowly, and it worked, because the gang was hanging on every word she said. But the real reason she was drawing it out was because she had to work herself up to it. This was much more serious than stealing soap. People could be shot for doing this, and part of her wanted to quit and run away before that happened to her. But the sheer audacity of what they were about to do made her feel more alive than she'd ever felt before. The same galaxy that had always handed her a dud hand was about to get a nasty surprise. She queued up a map of the nearest 3 counties. There's a family on the northern end of Pio County that farms them, and on the same day every year, they haul it into town through a dried-up riverbed, here. She poked her finger at a spot on the map. Now, Hanost, you said you could steal 2 speeder bikes any time you wanted, right? Hanost perked up suddenly. Practically already have 'em, he blustered. Steal them, and we'll all get on them and go out to the riverbed and wait on the sides. When we see the truck go by, we'll go down in with them, point blasters at them, and tell them to pull over. Then we'll grab as much of the stuff as we can carry and make off. They're in a truck? Said one of the Dorska brothers. A truck, said Scylla. A giant floating bin with a steering wheel. Do I have to tell you what a speeder bike is, too? The brother grew sullen. You didn't say truck. The other brother piped up. This looks a lot harder than stealing jackets. But when we do it, Scylla came back, we won't just have the vines. We'll have refined dust. That's because we're going to go here. She dismissed the county map and pulled up a world map she'd prepared. She pointed at the biggest city on Yostin. Picton's Landing. We'll go there and get in touch with someone to cook the vines into dust. She pointed at the shifty little Nikto. He knows a guy. And then we'll have it finished and ready for the streets. She clenched her fist hungrily. And from there, the profits all go to us. We don't have to do that, said one of the brothers. Scylla aimed a glare at him. Why not? I can do it. Yeah, I know how. I saw someone do it once when I was a kid. He tapped the side of his head. It's real easy to remember. You just heat it at the burning temperature of low-grade fuel until it goes watery, and then you let it boil for... He stopped himself. The point is, I know how. The shifty boy in the vest chose now to butt in. Pretty good plan, huh? When do I get my cut? Hanost took over. Hold your Kybucks, buddy. There's no money for anyone yet. Scylla threw in, You'll get your cut when we get ours. Hanost threw her a cautioning look, as if to tell her that that hadn't been her decision to make. She glared a challenge right back at him. But he didn't take the challenge. Instead, he said, I approve this plan. I'll steal us the speeder bikes, and we'll get there in plenty of time. He looked around. Anyone got questions for Scylla? There were none. Great. We talk again when I have the bikes. Hanost leaned back in the ruined couch where he sat, and that signaled the end of the planning session. Scylla watched as the rest of the gang perked up, as if they'd all suddenly gotten lighter, and the spacey girl started chatting with one of the Dorska brothers. Lowdown sidled up next to Scylla. So we're really doing this, he whispered to her. Gonna quit your job after all? Who said anything about that? I can keep 2 irons in the fire. You think you can work at that animal farm and come do this with us? He smiled and cursed. You'll be completely sleepless, do you know that? Scylla the Sleepless. She smirked. Bring it on.